Every death in Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán's inner circle reshaped the criminal map of Mexico. Between 2004 and 2017, targeted killings and military operations that eliminated his allies, relatives, and operators unleashed wars that left tens of thousands dead, fractured entire organizations, and gave rise to new cartels, including the CJNG, now the most dangerous criminal organization in the hemisphere. What really happened to the men who pulled the strings of the Sinaloa Cartel? Today we tell you the story few dare to tell. How the most important men around El Chapo met their end. Stay until the end, because the last death on this list is the most unexpected of all. Rodolfo Carrillo Fuentes, El Niño de Oro. The insult that unleashed 10,000 deaths. Born on July 20th, 1975 in Guamuchilito, Navolato, Sinaloa, Rodolfo was the youngest of the Carrillo Fuentes family, nephews of Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo, known as Don Neto, and served as chief negotiator for the Juarez cartel under his brother Vicente, El Viceroy. After the death of the legendary Amado Carrillo Fuentes, the Lord of the Skies, in 1997 during a liposuction procedure that became one of the strangest deaths in the history of Mexican criminal organizations, Rodolfo became the man of diplomacy between cartels. He managed the money, the relationships, and the transit agreements with calculated coldness. He was the kind of man nobody wanted as an enemy, precisely because he never seemed angry. But he harbored a silent hostility toward El Chapo and fiercely opposed his plan for a unified federation that would place Sinaloa above everyone else. To Rodolfo, El Chapo was a lucky upstart from the mountains. To El Chapo, Rodolfo was an obstacle. The scene that sealed his fate was recounted by Jesus Reynaldo Zambada, El Rey, at the federal court in Brooklyn on November 19, 2018, before a 12-person jury. At a peace summit organized by El Mayo Zambada in Culiacán during 2004, El Chapo extended his hand to Rodolfo, saying, "See you later, friend." Rodolfo left him with his hand outstretched and walked away, without saying a single word. Chapo was very angry, El Rey testified. He said he was going to take him out. El Chapo asked El Mayo for permission to have him eliminated, and he got it. On September 11, 2004, at approximately 4 p.m., Rodolfo was leaving the Cinépolis Plaza Cinema in Culiacán with his wife Giovanna Quevedo Gastelum and their 2 small children. A hit squad from Los Negros, the armed wing of the Sinaloa Cartel, ambushed them in the parking lot from multiple angles simultaneously. They fired more than 500 rounds from AK-47s. Rodolfo, Giovanna, and a parking attendant lost their lives. Their 2 children survived. In the pursuit that followed, 5 gunmen were taken out near the seminary. Rodolfo and Giovanna were buried together in a mahogany matrimonial casket. Their children were left orphaned, no father, no mother, in the parking lot of a cinema in Culiacán on a September afternoon before the eyes of the parking attendants. Here is what no one considers when telling this story. The killing of Rodolfo permanently destroyed the Sinaloa-Juarez alliance and ignited a war that lasted more than 8 years and claimed approximately 10,000 lives, turning Ciudad Juarez into the global capital of homicide between 2008 and 2012. Figures from the Chihuahua prosecutor's office recorded an average of 10 killings per day during the worst months of 2010. 10,000 people dead over a handshake that never happened, and the retaliation came 3 months later. Arturo Guzmán Loera, El Pollo, Vicente Carrillo Fuentes' payback arrived on December 31st, 2004, New Year's Eve, at Ceferezo No. 1, El Altiplano in Almoloya de Juarez, State of Mexico. Arturo Guzmán Loera, El Chapo's younger brother known as El Pollo, was speaking with his lawyer in the visiting area when inmate José Ramirez Villanueva pulled out a 9mm pistol previously hidden in a nearby bathroom and shot him 7 times in the chest, abdomen, and spinal cord. Death was instantaneous, inside the most heavily guarded prison in the country. On the first day of the year, Arturo was not a minor subordinate. When El Chapo was arrested in Guatemala in 1993, El Pollo took over operational control of the Guzman wing of the Sinaloa Cartel with the backing of Arturo Beltrán Leyva. He served as logistics chief responsible for production, transport, and distribution for nearly 8 years. He recruited hookers, fixers whose job was to bribe military commanders and officials from the Attorney General's office. According to ministerial testimony, he simultaneously controlled officials in 12 states. He was accused of engineering a 60-meter tunnel between Tijuana and San Isidro, California, used for trafficking illegal substances. He actively participated in El Chapo's escape from Puente Grande on January 19, 2001, coordinating the exterior logistics while his brother was wheeled out in a laundry cart, and was arrested in Mexico City in August of that same year. Now comes the detail that almost no one knows. El Chapo devised a cinematic rescue plan that was revealed by Vicente Zambada Niebla during the Brooklyn trial. A Bell Ranger 407 helicopter would fly over the prison yard and lower an armored steel capsule on cables. Loudspeakers would announce that the capsule contained a bomb to deter the guards from shooting. El Chapo's personal pilot, known as El Tinieblo, recruited in Miami for $25,000 a month, considered the plan insane. He never refused directly. The plan was never carried out. Arturo was taken out before the helicopter ever arrived. Damaso Lopez Serrano, Mini Leak, revealed in an interview with Anabel Hernandez that Arturo's death devastated Ivan Archivaldo Guzman. Not a single night went by without him crying, sobbing. Someone had been killed in that prison, his uncle, so he feared they would come for him next. Arturo's remains were transported to Culiacán and laid to rest in a $1.2 million mausoleum in Jardines del Humaya, complete with air conditioning, surveillance, and multiple rooms. Ramirez Villanueva was sentenced to 37 years and 7 months in prison. The man who took the life of the most wanted man in Mexico's brother slept within the same system that was supposed to protect him. And El Chapo, from his own confinement in Puente Grande, received the news that his brother had lost his life in the same kind of cell he had managed to leave behind. New Year's Eve 2004, a new year that began with a funeral. Julio Cesar Beltrán Quintero, El Julión, the cousin who was too ambitious. Julio Cesar Beltrán Quintero was a first cousin, not a brother, of the Beltrán Leyva family, the son of Manuel Beltrán Arredondo and Rosa Emma Quintero. His ambition made him dangerous. He wanted to create a new generation of bosses, considering the established leaders obsolete. A fatal miscalculation in a world where unauthorized ambition carries a fixed price. On July 13, 2005, on a main avenue in Culiacán, a hit squad ambushed him and fired more than 300 rounds. 4 state police officers assigned to protect his mother were also killed. He was carrying a fake ID as Ricardo Leon Beltrán from the Ranchers Association of Tamazula. There are 2 versions of who had him eliminated. El Rey Zambada testified in Brooklyn that El Chapo ordered it for disobeying direct instructions. But documents from Federal Case 112-CR-00184-RJL indicate the order came from Arturo Beltrán Leyva, who had him taken out after discovering that Julio had diverted a shipment of Colombian white substance that was meant for the organization. Keeping someone else's merchandise in this business has a name: suicide on a delay. To understand the magnitude of what this family endured, you need to know the full story. The tragedy of the Beltrán Quintero family is one of the most brutal in the chronicle of organized crime. Between 2000 and 2009, they were eliminated one by one. Rodolfo in May 2004, Julio in July 2005, their father Manuel in November 2007, their sister Claudia Judith in 2008, and their uncle Rafael in May 2009. Their mother, Rosa Emma, was kidnapped for 9 months in the year 2000 with a ransom demand of $100 million and 50 kilos of white substance. An entire family consumed name by name, year after year. And just as Julio fell, the event that would split the history of Mexican organized crime in 2 was fast approaching. Edgar Guzmán López, El Moreno. Edgar Guzmán López was born on May 31, 1986 in Culiacán. He was the son El Chapo was grooming as his heir. A graduate of Tec de Monterrey with an 8.2 GPA, a family man barely beginning his entry into the world of illegal trafficking. He was 22 years old when death caught up with him. On May 8, 2008, at approximately 9 p.m., 2 days before Mother's Day, Edgar was in the parking lot of the City Club in Desarrollo Urbano Tres Rios, the most exclusive commercial district in Culiacán. A squad of between 15 and 20 gunmen stepped out of their vehicles and opened fire with AK-47s, grenades, and a bazooka, whose impact left a mark on the parking lot wall. More than 500 rounds were fired in less than 3 minutes. Edgar's body was left unrecognizable. His cousin Cesar Ariel Loera and Arturo Meza Cázares, the son of La Emperatriz Blanca Margarita Cázares Salazar, a money launderer for El Mayo, also lost their lives. Here is what no documentary ever tells you. The initial version blamed the Beltrán Leyva organization as retaliation for prior events. But Vicente Zambada Niebla, El Vicentillo, and Damaso López Serrano, Minilik, revealed in documents that served as the basis for Anabel Hernández's book El Traidor, A Far Darker Truth. The attack was carried out by the armed cell of Gonzalo Inzunza, Macho Prieto, the armed wing of El Mayo Zambada. Intelligence indicated that members of Arturo Beltrán Leyva's group would be at that shopping center that night. The order went out that no one from the cartel should leave the house that night. Edgar went out without a radio and without bodyguards. When they checked whether any of their own were at the location, everyone confirmed negative. A gunman shouted, "That's him!" pointing at Edgar's vehicle, and everyone opened fire, friendly fire. A mistake that was never officially acknowledged. El Chapo's reactions contradict each other dramatically depending on the source. El Vicentillo said his response was brief. "So be it. That whole group kept working." Minilik wrote that upon learning the attack had been authorized by the Zambada family, El Chapo gave the order to strike back and wipe out everything connected to them, a fury that was ultimately contained. But there is also a record that in prison someone asked him about Edgar and he answered, "I'm not going to talk about my boy today. I weep for him." What did happen is legendary. El Chapo ordered every available rose in Culiacán purchased, approximately $50,000, for the funeral on May 9th. The flowers covered the casket, the chapel, and the cemetery. Because the funeral consumed every flower one day before Mother's Day, no mother in Culiacán received roses that year. Lupillo Rivera immortalized it in 50 mil rosas. But the story that doesn't make it into the ballads is that the friendly fire mistake was never punished, and that Edgar's younger brothers, Ovidio and Joaquín Guzmán López, Los Chapitos, inherited the power and built the largest methamphetamine empire in history, with 11 laboratories producing up to 2,260 kilos per month. Edgar's death did not weaken the Sinaloa Cartel. It transformed it into something far more dangerous. Arturo Beltrán Leyva, El Barbas. Marcos Arturo Beltrán Leyva, born on September 27, 1961 in La Palma, Badiraguato, was, alongside El Chapo and El Mayo, one of the men who trafficked approximately 200 metric tons of white substance and generated an estimated $5.8 billion in profits, according to DEA estimates. Known as El Barbas, the boss of bosses, and La Muerte, he began as a bodyguard for Arturo Carrillo Fuentes. He built an empire of corruption that included monthly payments of $450,000 to anti-substance czar Noé Ramirez Mandujano, penetration of Ciedo, the Attorney General's Office, AFI, and Interpol Mexico, and approximately $50 million paid to Public Security Secretary Genaro Garcia Luna, according to testimony that shook El Chapo's trial. After the split with El Chapo in 2008, when Arturo accused Guzman of having handed his brother Alfredo over to the authorities, he became the most dangerous enemy of the cartel that had shaped him. He allied with Los Zetas and the Gulf Cartel. He placed banners directed at President Calderón himself. "We ask you to open your eyes and realize the kind of people you have. Genaro Garcia Luna has arrangements with the Sinaloa Cartel." National homicides jumped from 8,867 in 2007 to 14,006 in 2008. Arturo Beltrán Leyva was not just another boss, he was a catastrophe in motion. His downfall began on December 11, 2009, when the Mexican Navy located an extravagant Christmas party and baptism celebration in Ahuatepec, Morelos. Arturo had hired singer Ramón Ayala, Los Cadetes de Linares, and more than 20 escorts. A shootout followed. 3 gunmen were taken out, 11 detained, Ramón Ayala arrested, but Arturo escaped. A U.S. diplomatic cable revealed that the intelligence was first offered to the Army, which failed to act due to risk aversion. So they contacted the Navy, and the Navy acted. 5 days later, on December 16, 2009, at approximately 5:15 p.m., 200 naval infantry with 2 Mi-17 helicopters and 2 armored vehicles surrounded the Altitude condominium in Cuernavaca. Arturo was in apartment 201. His men responded with intense fire and approximately 20 fragmentation grenades. The battle lasted between 90 minutes and 4 hours. When cornered, Arturo personally opened fire and threw grenades. He was taken out in a hail of gunfire. 3 of his gunmen fell. 1 took his own life by jumping from a balcony. 6 were detained. The only Marine who lost his life was Melchizedek Angulo Cordova, 30 years old, a Special Forces 3rd Petty Officer, wounded by a grenade during the operation. What followed was one of the darkest chapters of this entire war. On December 21st, Angulo received full military honors in Tabasco. The Secretary of the Navy presented the flag to his mother, Irma Cordova Palma. He had given his life following orders. The state honored him. And hours after the ceremony, in the early morning of December 22nd, a squad of more than 12 gunmen stormed the family home in Paraíso, Tabasco. They took the lives of his mother Irma, 64 years old, who had just received the flag, his sister Jolidabe, 22, his brother Benito, 28, and his aunt Josefa, 46. His sister Miraldeli survived with severe injuries. The message was unmistakable. Taking out the hero has consequences for those who loved him. Analyst Jorge Chabat summed it up. It's meant to intimidate not just the government, but the flesh and blood of any soldier who dares to do his job. The most infamous photograph of the war against criminal organizations was the body of Arturo with his pants pulled down, his shirt rolled up, covered in stained dollar bills and pesos arranged in rows from his neck to his knees, with a rosary placed on top. Forensic workers from Morelos testified that when they arrived, the body was already arranged that way. The Navy denied any involvement in staging the scene. No one was ever prosecuted for it. Arturo's death fractured his organization into more than 10 groups. Los Pelones, La Mano con Ojos, Cartel Independiente de Acapulco, Guerreros Unidos, Los Mazatlecos. Each one ended up more brutal than the last. His mausoleum in Jardines del Humaya cost $650,000 and includes Wi-Fi, satellite television, and a kitchen. Nacho Coronel Villarreal, the Crystal King who gave birth to the CJNG. Ignacio Coronel Villarreal, born on February 1, 1954 in Canelas, Durango, was one of the 4 main leaders of the Sinaloa Cartel alongside El Chapo, El Mayo, and El Azul. Known as the Crystal King, he dominated methamphetamine production in Mexico with laboratories capable of producing tons annually. His territory was Jalisco, Colima, Nayarit, and parts of Michoacán, controlling the Pacific route for trafficking white substance from Colombia. Here is a detail few people know. His niece, Emma Coronel Aispuro, married El Chapo on July 2, 2007, the day she turned 18. Business and family fused into a single structure. His decline began on April 3, 2010, when 30 gunmen from Los Zetas kidnapped and took the life of his son Alejandro Coronel, 16 years old, in Bahia de Banderas, Nayarit. Coronel sent more than 100 men in retaliation and kidnapped 14 people. The resulting depression led him to frequent physiotherapy sessions that, ironically, made him predictable. In an episode that reveals how reputation is built in this world, Coronel kidnapped the wife of Héctor Beltrán Leyva. In the middle of an open war between organizations, Wernan returned her unharmed with a note. "I'm returning her safe and sound so you can see that for us family is sacred." The gesture was not compassion. It was a demonstration of power. On July 29, 2010 at 1 p.m., 150 elite Army soldiers deployed by air and ground arrived at Paseo de los Parques, 1464 in the exclusive Colinas de San Javier neighborhood of Zapopan, Jalisco. Coronel was receiving a massage from a physiotherapist. He had no armed security, unusual for a boss of his level, and was carrying only a pistol with no extra magazines. When he heard the soldiers, he smashed a window and tried to flee through the garden. Seeing his companions captured, he fell back, took cover, and opened fire. He took out one soldier and wounded another before being brought down with at least 6 impacts to the shoulder, arm, thigh, neck, abdomen, and chest. Journalist Anabel Hernandez questioned whether the dead man was truly Nacho Coronel. The fingerprints matched a certain Dagoberto Rodriguez Jimenez, 10 years younger. Authorities explained that Coronel had been detained in 1993 under that false name. A source close to the case offered another version to Proceso. He didn't take out anyone. The Army's orders were precise. Destroy the enemy, don't capture him. To justify his death, they put a pistol in his hand and pulled the trigger. The official truth and the unofficial version never converged. But the most far-reaching consequence of his death was not any newspaper headline. It was what was born from his absence. Following his elimination and the prior capture of Oscar Nava Valencia, El Lobo, the criminal structure that had operated under his umbrella in Jalisco fractured. 2 factions emerged, La Resistencia and Los Torcidos, the latter led by former police officer Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, El Mencho. Los Torcidos won the internal war and renamed themselves the Jalisco New Generation Cartel. Initially, they operated on behalf of the Sinaloa Cartel. Then they became independent. Then they became its greatest rival. Today, they are present in nearly every Mexican state and in at least 36 countries. A cartel that exists because Nacho Coronel's life was taken, and whose founder used the vacuum Coronel left behind as a springboard to build the most dangerous criminal empire in the hemisphere. A laptop was seized from Coronel containing the names, phone numbers, and addresses of at least 25 police chiefs from various municipalities in Jalisco who were receiving monthly payments. An entire corruption payroll stored on a single device. They also found evidence of methamphetamine laboratories capable of producing between 3 and 5 tons annually. The man who built that infrastructure was taken out in his underwear in a garden in Zapopan. But his legacy survived in the organization born from his absence. El Mencho's CJNG has carried out attacks with armed drones, confronted the army with homemade armored vehicles, and set up simultaneous blockades across multiple cities. All of that grew from the void Nacho Coronel left on July 29, 2010. Manuel Alejandro Aponte Gómez, El Bravo. Born on December 10, 1974 in Chilpancingo, Guerrero, Aponte entered the heroic military college in 1993, graduated in 1996, and was trained in the Special Forces Airmobile Group, GAIF, the most elite unit of the Mexican Army. He reached the rank of infantry lieutenant. Between 2001 and 2003, he was assigned to the 7th Non-Attached Infantry Company in Badiraguato, El Chapo's hometown, where he established contact with the cartel. He deserted in May 2004, taking with him the training and military protocols he would later use against the very institution that taught him. First described publicly by the legendary journalist Jesus Blancornelis of Zeta Tijuana in 2004, round face, small nose, thin lips, doesn't look like a criminal. El Bravo became El Chapo's head of security and chief enforcer. He created and trained Los Halcones, groups of gunmen equipped with bazookas, mortars, and grenade launchers, designed specifically to counter Los Zetas and La Línea. The key difference was methodology. Where other cartels improvised, Los Halcones operated with military structure. Observation posts, encrypted communications, pre-planned extraction routes. Aponte transferred to the cartel exactly what the state had spent years teaching him. He is credited with carrying out the killing of Rodolfo Carrillo Fuentes in the cinema parking lot in 2004, as well as coordinating multiple ambushes against rival forces in Guerrero and Sinaloa between 2005 and 2013. He was El Chapo's fist in multiple simultaneous wars. But the episode that cemented his position took place in the summer of 2006. Near Cerro Moynora, in the Golden Triangle, a special forces unit detected El Chapo's security ring. After a firefight lasting hours as night fell and the perimeter was closing in, Aponte personally guided El Chapo through canyons and mountain trails that only he knew. He saved his life. According to the reconstruction by Riodoce, that act earned him the boss's unconditional loyalty. On April 8th or 9th, 2014, 6 weeks after El Chapo's capture in Mazatlan on February 22nd, his body was found on a dirt road near Los Tanques, La Cruz de Elota, Sinaloa. He had been subjected to a prolonged violent interrogation and eliminated with 6 shots to the head and neck. 3 additional bodies were found nearby, including that of a former soldier from the 8th Infantry Battalion. No shell casings were found at the scene. He had been taken out at another location and dumped there. No family member claimed the body. 2 theories exist about who had him eliminated. The most widely accepted points to gunmen working for Damaso López Núñez, El Licenciado, who was positioning himself as El Chapo's successor after the capture and eliminated his head of security as a message of power. The second, less documented but more unsettling, suggests that El Chapo's own sons had him taken out for having allowed their father's capture. What the Brooklyn trial confirms is disturbing. In the bill of particulars filed by prosecutors on July 20, 2018, Bravo appeared as an identified victim described as former bodyguard of El Chapo. A notebook presented as evidence contained a list of people El Chapo wanted eliminated, and El Bravo's name was on it. The man who saved his life in the mountains later appeared on his own list of enemies. The most loyal man in the inner circle, taken out by the very organization he defended with his career and with his life. Francisco Javier Zazueta Rosales, Pancho Chimal, a Hollywood-style escape. Born approximately in 1986 in Culiacan, Pancho Chimal took his nickname from the ranch where he grew up. He became head of security for Ivan Archivaldo Guzmán Salazar and leader of Los Chimales, one of the most violent armed cells of the Sinaloa Cartel. He commanded up to 60 men who moved in convoys of up to 30 trucks through Culiacan and Mazatlan. He controlled distribution to the United States from Culiacan and served as plaza boss in Agua Prieta, Sonora. His boldest act occurred on September 30, 2016. He ordered the ambush of a military convoy escorting an ambulance carrying Julio Oscar Ortiz Vega, El Kevin, a suspected cousin of El Chapo, who had been wounded in an operation. At 4:00 a.m. on Highway Mexico 15, gunmen in more than 8 vehicles attacked with a Barrett M82 anti-materiel rifle, grenades, and automatic weapons. 5 soldiers lost their lives and 10 more were wounded. The gunmen extracted El Kevin from the moving ambulance. El Kevin was later found, subjected to a harsh interrogation and eliminated in Navalado in March 2017. Rescued only to be taken out by the same people who rescued him. Captured on February 18, 2017 with a grenade launcher, nearly 5 kilos of methamphetamine and 2 million pesos, he was held at the Aguaruto prison in Culiacan, a state prison entirely controlled by the cartel, where inmates enjoyed condo-style cells with cell phones, televisions, illegal substances, alcohol, and escorts. The night before his escape, they threw him a going-away party. A going-away party in the prison. On March 16, 2017, a truck supposedly loaded with lumber arrived at the prison. The lumber company listed as the sender was entirely fictitious, and the supposed owner of the truck didn't even know how to drive. The vehicle had a double-bottom compartment where Pancho Chimal, El Changuito Antrax, Rafael Guadalupe Felix Núñez, El Limón, and El 20 hid. Simultaneously, a planned riot distracted the guards. The escape was compared in every media outlet to El Chapo's escape from Puente Grande. History repeating itself as farce. He survived 1 month as a fugitive. On April 14, 2017, the Navy located a meeting in San Cayetano, Tepuche, in the mountainous zone of Culiacan. Pancho Chimal fought back with an R-15 rifle fitted with a grenade launcher before being brought down in the firefight. His funeral at Campo El Diez drew more than 200 people. The floral arrangements were so large they had to be transported on flatbed trucks. During the burial at Jardines del Humaya, rifles and pistols were fired into the air. No authorities showed up. After his death, leadership of Los Chimales passed to José Ángel Canobio Insunza, El Guerrito, later prosecuted in Chicago. The pattern is always the same. One operator falls, another emerges. The cartel functions like an organism that replaces damaged cells, adapting, mutating. The 2024 war between Los Chapitos and El Mayo Zambada's forces in Culiacan, which left hundreds dead and 11,000 displaced in the first week, was not an anomaly. It was the accumulated consequence of decades of betrayals, friendly fire, and transactional loyalties. The same cycle that began in that parking lot in 2004 when no one shook El Chapo's hand.